Hello and welcome to what is a festive special episode. Today we're going to be talking about how to change and grow in your life. Now, I begin this video by saying that the biggest factor to actually changing and improving and growing in your life is actually embracing change because change is a constant that you have to embrace. Most people don't like to do that. And in my previous video, I had mentioned that I want to become the type of person that just embraces all kinds of possibilities and works consciously towards that. And since then, the last 10 days, it's been somewhat revelatory for me because I feel like I've grown and I've changed so much as a person in such a short span of time simply because I embraced change in my life, and because of that, I changed as a person. You know, I set off for Garba, like I mentioned in my previous video, and kind of told myself, hey, if you are going through with this, do so with the kind of intent that would take you far, take you places. And so I kind of went with this goal that every day I'm going to show up and every day I'm going to be part of the circle or the community a little bit more, introduce myself to people, start dancing, start familiarizing myself with all of the steps, all of that, the works, right? I basically had to visualize and delude myself into thinking that I am that guy that is good at Garba. Like, I am the king of Garba. That by the end of Garba, I would be the king of it. And with that approach, with that mindset, I just set out and I started seeing that it was unfolding in a way that I had anticipated it to unfold simply because I kept that possibility open, which was that the more I showed up there, the more people got familiar with me, the more people got warmer towards me, and the more people started being accepting of what I had to bring to the table. And this started with me just being open to newer perspectives, right? At the end of the day, change is all about knowing that, hey, there might be something else out there that I might have dismissed because I was told that it's all hokey pokey and it's all not worth your time. As a man of science, if you will, because that's what I chose to anchor my life on for almost my entire life, for all I can remember. Buying into this religious sort of sentiment was just very difficult for me. Um, but at the same time, who is to tell that that person is wrong, you know? And I say this because while Garba was going on, I actually ended up going to my friend's house. And to go there, I spoke to this autowala who was standing with a bunch of his friends or colleagues or acquaintances, right? And they were having a conversation. And I got to eavesdrop a little bit on that conversation. And the setting outside was that it was drizzling, right? And they were saying that the weather is so nice, which it was. And one of the auto drivers mentioned that that day they were celebrating a certain goddess. I don't remember who that goddess was, but I remember the auto driver distinctly saying that it's this goddess that they were celebrating. Then, since it's her day, it's but obvious that rain should come. Now, instinct told me to completely ignore whatever was said and just like put that in the trash bin, you know, like in your mental recycle bin. Yeah, it belongs there. But it got me thinking about epistemology and why we know what we know, how do we know it, and if that piece of information was actually true or not. Like it could be that you are putting correlation to things that shouldn't be correlated, but there could be underlying hints of truth to that correlation. And I think that now it's my time to just be open minded enough to accept things that seem so out of touch with what I understand to be reality, because it's different. I feel like we need to be more accepting of what's different in order to fully understand and grok the scale at which we choose to operate in our life, right? Because how do you know when you should stop trusting yourself and actually go out and seek answers? Because I feel like most of us, we live in worlds of fantasies where we have picturesque ideas in our head, but none of those ideas are actually materialized. And if an idea is not materialized, then does it have any form of grounding over your life? Right? You can mentally masturbate to all of the ideas and pre-existing notions of how things should be and what things are in your head. Like you could delude yourself into saying that I can do X, Y, and Z, no problem. I'm just waiting for the right opportunity to do it, because that's not, you've not actually done it. So you don't know what the challenges are associated with actually doing it, and dealing with the kind of things that you overlook when you fantasize about all of these things. So for me, I just want to know that I don't live in my own fantasy, that I can go out and explore much more of life and just be a little bit more holistic with my understanding of what really reality is. And I think that the more you start doing that, the more you can embrace that change and the more you can grow with that, because you are bound to change as a person, hopefully a better one, the more open you are as a person to certain things in your life, you know. And also, like, one might oppose to me by saying, okay, cool, like that's fine being open minded and all, but what if I am open minded and I end up um believing in some hokey pokey loony woony bullshit? Like, what if I start believing in flat earth theory, if I'm so open minded? But the paradox and the irony actually in that is that flat earthers are actually one of the most close minded people on earth. So being open is just being skeptical with the things that's coming your way, but at the same time not being in denial of anything. Of course, skepticism is to be employed in every situation, right? Because you don't want to be misled, and you seriously don't want to be believing in something that's false. And just, there are layers to it, right? Like, I don't want to buy into the idea of flat earth and just stick there, but I do want to understand what that is all about. The same way I don't want to buy into what Hinduism or Islam or Christianity has to offer, but rather just understand where they all stemmed from and really understand the true picture, the big picture, where the entire context is sort of put in place, rather than just focusing on one single piece of that jigsaw puzzle and claiming that to be the entire jigsaw puzzle itself. At that point of time, you have to really question, are you just lazy, or Are you just in denial that there are more pieces that exist simply because you like this piece so much? And you risk not liking this piece enough if you are introduced to bigger pieces. And you also risk the meaning of this piece changing as you keep expanding on it. Because what tends to happen is that as you keep filling in these gaps in the context upon which we choose to frame all of the things that we claim to be facts, we often overlook that. We often overlook that some of the facts can be rendered obsolete when put in retrospect with different kinds of contexts or perspectives, or just filling in the blanks a little better. So I feel like if you truly want to change, right? If you truly want to embody the type of person that you want to be, then just stop believing that you are that person. Honestly, just start believing that, and quite honestly, just like deluding yourself that that is who you are. Because for me to claim myself as Garba King, which is a little narcissistic, I admit, but that's kind of what I visualize my ideal self to be: somebody that could just enter, be a part of the culture, and completely overthrow that culture and make it his own, without being disrespectful about it, right? Of course. So, what would my ideal self act like? I just kept thinking that to myself, and I kept acting in that accord. And in that way, it just became closer to materializing that ideal self. And the gap between who I was and who my ideal self was just kind of narrowed down. And the more that you keep doing this work, the more that you keep somewhat deluding yourself, but also taking action towards those delusions, the closer you will be to realizing that that was you all along. You actually just needed to be able to tap into that. So, to do exactly that, right, you have to get rid of a lot of limiting beliefs as to why you can't do it, because your ideal self does not have those limitations. It's you that has those limitations, right? So if you're acting from a place of your ideal self, then you need to sort of come to grips with the fact that, yes, now I can't make any more excuses, because my ideal self won't be making these kinds of excuses. Where I'm placed in my life is perfectly okay to operate from, but I should be always striving to achieve more. So I've just been testing, right, um, my limiting beliefs as much as possible. Um, Certainly not going ham with it, just pacing myself with it. But at the same time, I'm content with where I've reached so far, especially in the last 10 days since I've underwent this change, got introduced new people, changed my friend group a little bit, and sort of created a vibe. I I started taking the initiative to do the things that I've been afraid to do all this while, and just start exploring reality. And so far, it hasn't bitten me back. It might one day, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm not really too concerned or worried about when that day might happen, because to my ideal self, that does not happen. And so if I need to operate from that state of being, then I need to delude myself that it won't happen right now. And even if it does happen, it's okay. My ideal self can take it. So it's just playing with these ideas in my head and sort of coming to alignment with who I am and who you need to be, that you need to be cognizant of, really. Because changing your life is a lot easier than you think, but at the same time, it requires a certain frame of being that not a lot of people can achieve to be able to make that drastic change. Because Here's the thing, man. All of your excuses, they are valid. They are valid excuses. There's no denying that. There is a reason why you are stuck. But at the end of the day, ask yourself, will my excuses get the best of me, or am I going to overcome this adversity and create a life that is remarkable? So, a little bit of a cough and cold going on over here. So, my voice is a little dry, it's a little drab, but hopefully, this episode has been helpful in some way. It's a little bit more abstract than I would have liked it to be, because using a title like How to Change and Grow in Life and throwing abstractions into the pool does not make it easier to fish. Um, but hey, I don't want to give clear cut answers because I don't believe there are. All I believe there is lessons that you take back from each experience that you have in life. And for me, the greatest joy is just being able to share those lessons with you guys. And for me to reflect back on these lessons on my own every time I rewatch some of my content months or years down the line, and to see that, hey, this is where I came from. And I'm really proud of myself for doing this, because if you're not looking back on your younger self with the kind of pride that you should be having, then how can you trust your older self to look back to you in kindness? You can't. So, these are just frameworks that I've adopted in my life, and I'm happy with where where I've reached. And I want you guys to have that same feeling as well if you haven't been having that already. And so, with that being said, it's time to end. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Philly Wonka is out. Peace, guys.